the Unlearning Ableism podcast, sponsored by Even Break, making the uncomfortable comfortable. Isn't it time we started unlearning? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Unlearning Ableism podcast, sponsored by Even Break.
What a fun video that was.
I know. I love the jingle. I wish I hear it. Da, 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 da.
If I didn't have so much hairspray in my hair, I would be like shaking my head back side to side like Willow Smith, but it's not working. Welcome to another episode of Unlearning Ableism, the podcast, because we're not just a live series anymore. We are live on Instagram. We are live on LinkedIn. After our live series, a fully captioned video is added to YouTube. And then following that, you then will have the option to watch or stream on the go across Spotify, Apple, Amazon, insert your favorite podcast station here. So do look out for that in the next week or so. But Celia, this is like our second episode for our podcast. How do you feel?
I feel great. I feel professional. And hello to everyone dialing in. I can see Dave here. I can see Ruth joining from London. Drop in the comments and let us know where you're dialing in from. We love to engage as many people as possible. Before we kick off, we're going to do a quick visual description, and captions are available at the bottom for anybody that needs it. There's a little button that you can click. So hello everybody, my name is Celia. I think we all know each other at this point. We've done so many episodes. Is this fourth episode of July? I'm a white female. I've got dark blonde hair that is tied up. I'm wearing a black long sleeve, even though it's July, with a white strappy dress. I'm wearing glasses and probably quite an obscene amount of makeup because I felt horrible today. Hello, Alicia from Ireland.
And my name is Jamie, for those who don't know me. I am the one with the subtle Northern Irish tone. So hello, Ireland, over there. I'm Northern Ireland. I am a white male, and I'm going to be honest, I am Casper white because Northern Irish skin do not like the summer. I have dark hair that is hairsprayed within an inch of its life. I have blue eyes that go for little dances, last minute stigmas. And I have a short, dark beard, which I'm not going to say it needs cut, but it definitely does need trim. And I am sat in my office, and I'm wearing a lovely black shirt with, I don't know what colour the pattern is, but it's got a pattern, I know that. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too, especially because we have our guest who is going to be coming on, who is Seema Flower today. If anyone doesn't know Seema, you are in for an absolute treat. But we are doing things a little bit differently because now that we are the Unlearning Ableism podcast, we are going to bring on somebody from Even Break, or we're going to catch up with the partners at Even Break with either a guest or what they're doing. Who knows what will happen. But for this first one, we know the last one was with Jane. For this first one, we are joined by the incredible Dana from Even Break, who is here to give us an update on our incredible partners. Hi Dana.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, nice to see you.
Welcome to the stage. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Did you need me to do an image ID as well, or is it all good?
Yes, give us an image description for anybody watching live.
Yeah, so I'm Dana. I'm a white female. I have brown hair with blonde highlights. And I've got white headphones on and glasses.
We are so happy to have you here. And like as we said, Even Break is now the official sponsor of the Unlearning Ableism podcast, which is absolutely incredible because for those who don't know, go check out Even Break, evenbreak.co.uk. Even Break, actually, do you know what? I'm not going to do this because, Dana, you work for them. What am I doing?
We have the expert here, Jamie.
You have the expert, yeah. Pass the mic. Dana, tell us about Even Break and what he's getting up to at the moment.
Yeah, so Even Break, well, you had Jane on last week, so I'm sure she did a much better job of kind of explaining Even Break, but I'll do it in a bit of a nutshell. So we're a disabled job board run by and for disabled people, and our whole kind of mission is to make kind of close the employment gap and make the workplace more inclusive and accessible to disabled people, while simultaneously supporting employers to also make those steps towards inclusion too.
So this is why we got you to do that, because that was an absolute butchery coming from me. Even Break it should be so well known, because I know in my lifetime I've struggled to gain and retain employment. It just kind of comes part and parcel with being a disabled person. It seems to be that the market is just inaccessible or just completely deep-rooted in ableism, as we know. But Dana, tell us about you specifically. What do you do at Even Break, and what is your favorite part about your job over there?
Yeah, so I'm the content and engagement manager. So I sit very firmly within kind of the marketing team, and I work with the marketing team collaboratively to kind of ideate, not only kind of obviously make sure more people know about Even Break, but also make sure we're working with the community and making sure they feel supported across all of our platforms, initiatives, and activities. In terms of what we're doing at the moment, I don't think I can actually say too much, but we do have some really, really exciting things coming up. And I will say that if you are part of our candidate newsletter, now is a time to sign up, especially for the next
I
win that's
can
going to go
vouch
out
for
at the end
that.
of the day. Yeah.
Anybody listening or watching in who is currently looking for employment or going to be changing jobs in the future, definitely sign up to Even Break. There are some incredible things that they're doing now, and we know the inside goss, some incredible stuff that they are going to some incredible things that they're going to be doing very soon as well. So please do all head over, and I can see that Gemma has posted a link in the comments, which is www.evenbreak.co.uk. So head on over and sign up.
Fantastic. Well, we love the fact that we're partnered with Even Break. Dana, I hope this won't be the last time we see you. I'm pretty sure between you and Gemma, we will have you on this show like a rotation, like just part of the team, part of the squad. But before we let you go, Dana, it's Disability Pride Month. Tell us, what is one takeaway you want everyone to take away from Disability Pride Month?
I think that would be that the word pride, can be experienced in whatever way you want it to be. So as someone who's disabled and has kind of a chronic illness, I sometimes struggle with the concept of pride. And I think it's okay if you need to reframe that in disability pride, to not necessarily be proud that you experience perhaps symptoms related to your disability, but kind of proud of the progress. So just celebrate pride in whatever way makes sense to you, would be my one takeaway.
I love that.
Love it. Oh, just a perfect little bow on the package.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Accessible mic drop, because I have realized if you drop a mic, the kind of stuff, the sound that comes off a mic when you drop it. So you want an accessible mic drop, make sure that thing's turned off before you drop it. Dana, it has been amazing having you here. Thank you so much for coming on. And as we said, you will be hearing from Dana, I'm pretty sure, a lot more in the future. But until the meantime, Dana, we'll love and leave you. Goodbye.
Bye,
thank you for joining us. Bye.
So that will become our new regular, where we bring our partners and their incredible team over there on at different various points to keep you up to date with what's happening at Even Break, to kind of help you stay in the know, and of course to help you get more involved with them. And as I said, Even Break isn't just for disabled candidates. If you are an organisation who is looking to tap into the disabled market, who is looking to really engage with disabled talent, then also reach out to Even Break. They are there to support you. They were there to help you on that journey. And it's a journey that you can't do alone. So,
exactly.
Celia, should we bring on our guest now for the month?
Yes, please.
For this episode?
I'm so excited to introduce you all to Seema, and I won't give you her bio because she can do that herself, because she is fantastic. But for anybody that doesn't know Seema, get to know Seema. A long-standing icon of mine in the disabled space, so absolutely delighted to have her join us. Bring her on in, Jamie. Are you drinking from a juice box?
I'm drinking from a juice box because apparently when you drink your Pepsi, it's too big. Seema, welcome to Unlearning Ableism, the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really pleased to be here. Thank you.
We're so happy to have you, Seema. Seema, do you want to do a visual description for anyone who is watching who may require it?
Yeah. Okay. So I am Indian origin. I've got olive coloured skin. I've got dark hair with a few highlights, caramel highlights through them, sort of just past my shoulders. And I'm wearing a black t-shirt. And I'm wearing my famous red lipstick.
And we have to say, Seema is serving. You are serving today, Seema. And backstage, I was telling Seema, whenever I see photos of Seema, she always just looks so incredible, and her lipstick is always so easy for me to point out in a photo. So, Seema, I appreciate you making yourself visually aware of me in images.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think it's important. I think it's important to present ourselves well. I think we're going to talk about this a bit later, but sometimes people always have preconceptions about what blind people might be like, and we like to be glamorous just as well, just like everybody else, I guess.
100%. And I'm sitting in agreement with you, and as somebody who's registered blind, I'm conscious I'm sitting here with a beard that needs done, but my partner is busy, and you do not trust me with a razor blade, otherwise the beard has to go, and nobody wants to see me without a beard. as Celia said, engage in the chat. Let us know where you're dialing in from. Let us know if you have any questions for Seema. And throughout the conversation today, we will be allowing Celia to read the chat because me and myself, I like saying that stuff. So Celia is going to take the questions and make sure that they are signposted through. But let's dive in. Seema, it's Disability Pride Month. This episode, we've called it I'm Not Just Disabled, because what we tend to see within the disability space is we see one experience typically centered, and that is the white experience. That is a white disabled person. And obviously, if you describe yourself as Indian descent, tell us a little bit about the intersectionality of being disabled and being non-white.
So I'll go back to the title of the podcast, basically about, I'm not disabled. I think that is a really good title because I think it is really actually what it says. For me, isn't, I'm not just disabled. I think sometimes people don't look past that, okay, regardless of your color of your skin or your sort of origin. And I think that for me, in terms of intersectionality, I think that there are situations where different cultures don't always I wouldn't say appreciate, but obviously they're not always so accepting of different differences in people. I think that's sometimes maybe due to some lack of knowledge and education, and also personal attitudes as well. I think sometimes people I'm thinking, well, I've had people say to me in the profession, when I've been working with solicitors and things like that, not because I'm Indian, but that's because I'm a woman, you should be at home, basically. I've had comments like that when I was running my chain of hairdressing salons, and that made me so mad. But I don't think that person actually knew that I was blind at that point, because he was just speaking to me on the phone. God knows what he would have said to me if he knew I was registered blind as well, and a woman. So I think that it can be very, very difficult to sort of negotiate and navigate around that space sometimes. But do you know what? For me, it's about my sort of age in where I am at the moment. I'm happy because I'm comfortable in my own skin. It's taken me a long time to get there, so I try not to let these things affect me so much. But it can be something that you can take quite personally sometimes. And depending on the sort of day you're having, you probably can sort of identify this with Jamie and Celia, that sometimes these sort of things, when they're sort of you're faced with them in terms of like prejudice or discrimination, it can really ruin your whole day and bring you down.
100%. It can send you to spiral. Like, I know myself, like there's moments, as you said, like I'm trying to find the right way to say this here, but there's moments where it's easier to brush off some of that and be like, do you know what? I'm doing really well here. I'm having an amazing day. I'm not letting that get me down. But then it's like sustained, because it's not just one incident we have in a daytime. So it's like you've maybe had your sick experience of somebody doing something or saying something wrong, or ableism guiding somebody else's kind of thought process. And it's then that it hits you. And then it spirals you, because for me, I find myself when I'm maybe been struggling or somebody said something, not getting out of bed for days, drawn on that comment, and then almost having the same conversation over and over with my partner, being like, why did they say that? Like, is that what people...
Yeah.
And it's almost like you fixate in it, and then long to distract you, or another incident happens and you get distracted, and then it's just this continuous game. So see, how do you get to that stage of being able to kind of be like, okay, I need to get on with this here. How do we pick ourselves back up?
I think you pick yourself up by just saying, do you know what, this is someone else's opinion, okay? That's their perception, that's their opinion. It's just because they say something, it's not the truth, yeah? And I know that because I've been through this sort of thing with you, like you said, Jamie, where you ruminate on something and you think about the same thing again and again, trying to work out, why did that say that, But the thing is, I think I've now come to recognise the fact it doesn't matter. It's not always that important to understand why they said what they did. It's important more to sort of move past that, okay, and move around the obstacles. And even if there's sort of obstacles which were an attitudinal one, okay, it's good. It's better to move past that. And I think you need to have that self-belief, I think, and also surround yourself with people who are positive, and are going to support you. Yeah, I think you need to be with people who are not going to have any sort of negativity to an extent, because it's really, really important to have that positive steer on things and have that structure and that foundation to keep believing in yourself. Because in society we get so many messages through social media, TVs, whatever it is, and it could be about what we can't do as a disabled person, right? And I'll give an example for this. I'm a careers guidance practitioner. in my previous years. I still work with people, and they say, you know, they're 30 years old, maybe 12 years, they haven't worked. Okay, why haven't you worked? Well, because when I was, you know, they'll say when I was at the, you know, my school, the careers advisor told me, well, you know, you're not going to be able to do anything, you know, so don't bother going to college, don't bother to learn these skills. You're going to not be able to do X, Y, or Z. And this is still going on. You know, I used to be practicing the careers guidance practitioner in 1996, 95, right? How many years on is that? You know, and we're still having this conversation. So it's about, you know, keeping that strong focus, you know, focusing on what you can do as opposed to what you can't do, and just, you know, trying to make sure that, you know, that's someone else's opinion, you know, is not the truth.
Exactly. And I think you touched on something there, and it's something that I've kind of started integrating more into my life, is people that I thought were friends with me, or people I thought I had that relationship with, started saying, you know, negative things, or were constantly making a joke out of things. And I reached a point where I said to myself, actually, this is, you know, I've expressed how this makes me feel. If it continues, I have to have that self-preservation in myself, where I say it's about surrounding myself with positive people. Not everybody's going to get it. That's absolutely fine, because if someone doesn't have experience, they're never going to get it. But do they make that effort to go out and educate and make themselves aware and understand as best as they can? Yes, then those are the people that I want to be surrounded with. And actually, for the sake of my own mental health, I have to look at who I'm surrounding myself with. But you touched on there, we'd love to kind of hear a little bit about the work that you've done, because as I said in my intro, you know, you are someone that I have looked up to for a long time and followed for a long time. So we'd love to kind of hear a little bit about all the work that you've done over the years, and what you're up to at the moment as well. And also, anybody that's not following Seema, please do go and follow her, and Jamie will pop her links in the chat.
Thanks, Jamie. So, you know, I think just very, very quickly, Celia, you know, my daughter said something very interesting to me yesterday. She said, you know, if your friends aren't laughing with you, they're laughing at you. And she made a quite good point there. We were talking about something that happened, an incident that happened. And I think when I'm working with young people, just going back into as a coaching people, so say, for example, for instance, a personal experience, basically myself, you know, autism has been sort of something that's been quite close to my heart, basically, and having to work with people and, you know, go through that journey with them and supporting them, basically. And, you know, girls can be really cruel, teenage girls at school, you know, they sort of think, you know, they use that term autism as a derogatory term, basically, you know, and it's about, you know, supporting those young girls and saying, you know what, you know, they don't understand. It's about them being educated, and it's a disability journey that we go on, basically. So we get the, you know, we get the actual diagnosis. Okay, we're going to go through that period of denial. Okay, we're going to have that frustration, that anger, all those sorts of things that sit with that, and you know, you're going to come to the other side. You're going to work out new solutions. You can test new solutions. You're going to come out with a new way of working. Okay, it's about developing strategies that work for you. So for me, basically, it's about so my background, like I said previously, is education and training. Okay, I've worked as a careers guidance practitioner. I've worked with the RNIB many years as an education officer. I've done a lot of training. I've done a lot of audits. I've worked with higher education, FE institutions. I ran my own business for about 13 years in central London, a service-based business, which I grew and then exited in 2015, simply because my mum had cancer and something had to give. So I had a 3-year-old and 3 stores. I couldn't do it all. So exited that business in 2015. Unfortunately, my mum passed away that year as well. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer quite late. You know, 2 years she's been going to the GP. They didn't pick it up. That's another story, so I won't get started on the medical things. But so then I was left, you know, I didn't have a business to go on to, so I went back into doing consultancy work, and then, you know, a year later, you know, Blind Ambition was born. So I'm really passionate about disability. I'm really passionate about visually impaired people in particular, because I've got my own lived experience with retinitis pigmentosa, now down to 2% vision. And for me, it's about, you know, looking at those figures again, and Jamie's been on one of my webinars previously. It's about 75% of people who are visually impaired not in work. And so at Blind Ambition, it's a disability training consultancy where we work with all organisations of any size in terms of actually looking at 9 protected characteristics. You know, we don't just cover visual impairment or disability. We can look at anything they want them to, you know, where they want support on. So doing that training, but also looking at recruitment practices, you know, it's not just good enough to recruit someone with a disability. It's about actually recruiting that person, retaining that person, and then letting them have a natural career progression. We're finding now, people in careers they're sidelined. Okay, they're not getting the same opportunities as people able-bodied would in terms of like promotions, training, all those sorts of things. So we look at that, and then we have Blind Ambition International, which is a not-for-profit organisation. With that, we work quite closely with the RNIB to do employment webinars. We're going to be starting those again. We've got some national lottery funding to run confidence resilience courses. We work with a clinical psychologist called Dr. Annika Kumar. We ran that last year successfully. We're going to do it again this year. And then we run a specialist LinkedIn course, because it's important that people with disabilities and especially visual impairment are out there in the market and they know how to, use the tools, digital tools that everybody else is using. We have got a few exciting things coming up in terms of employment websites and those sorts of things. They're in the pipeline at the moment, but I will definitely come back and tell you about those once that we've finalised things and we've got something to talk about. Yeah.
Amazing. And you touched on, I know, you're just so accomplished and such positive change as well. And I think that's really important. It's lots of people talk, and it's great to see action as well as the talking. And that's something that I've always really admired about you is how much change you've made and how forceful you've been in this sector. You touched on something there that I wanted to kind of revert back to in terms of our conversation around intersectionality. Is there isn't tend to be a lot of conversation around being a woman and being disabled, and that's something I wanted to touch on, because women already face such discrimination. And I wrote an article not that long ago for a London newspaper about the fact that if you're a woman and you're disabled, you're fighting the gender pay gap and you're fighting the disability pay gap, and it was an average of £2, I think it was £82 or something less we're paid per hour. It was shocking. What was more shocking was all the comments underneath, as you can imagine, by people saying, this is a load of crap, this doesn't exist, la, 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 la. It's been very interesting for me as a disabled woman, kind of growing up and my disability getting more severe and more visible, I suppose, how people treat me as a woman and being disabled. And one of the things that I always kind of pick out on is education about our bodies and learning to manage that wasn't there applicable as a disabled woman. We were learning about how to deal with our menstrual cycles and menopause and all this kind of stuff. That wasn't taught. We look at kind of sex education. There was nothing disability specific in there, and that applies to all genders. But I wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit about that kind of intersectionality of being disabled and being a woman, and the additional barriers that comes with as well, because I know that I've faced a hell of a lot of them. Going into the legal sector, you're already up against it, being in the minority in terms of gender, add disability into the mix, and it was like banging my head against a brick wall.
I think it's absolutely true. And I think that, sometimes people don't take you seriously. I've been at meetings, obviously, when I was running my own business, people think, oh, you're blind, how are you going to be able to do that? Or you're a woman, And I just think, for me, I just think, I'm not going to swear.
You can swear. You can if you want to.
Okay, well, I just think, why don't you just off, basically? Do you know what I mean? I do think that, and I think people do find me I'm one of those people. I'm probably like Marmite. You either love me, you hate me. The thing is, I am quite persistent. I am a pain in the arse, and people think, oh, you're a troublemaker. But the problem is, I wasn't born a troublemaker. I wasn't born persistent. Basically, I was very, very quiet actually up until my mid-20s. I didn't actually find my voice until my early 30s. I think the thing is that it's society and your experiences actually shape you. And I think since my eyesight started to deteriorate, I thought, you know what? If I don't talk, and if I actually, say something, I'm going to actually be completely bypassed. Life's going to happen to me. I'm not going to have life happen to me. I'm going to actually take this, take it, take life, where I need to take it, basically being in control of my destiny. Yeah. And for me, it's about, it's about being in charge. Okay. I know I am a bit of a control freak. I know that. And, that's hard, because I think when you're disabled and you have when you have vision impairment as well, which is progressive, I think so much of your control or your power sometimes get taken away from you, because there's so many things you can't do. And that was very difficult for me. That point was really difficult, that stepping stone, to losing my sight. Like you're talking about your body, basically. For example, using the white cane. I would never seen being dead with a white cane. There's no way I would have touched a white cane. No way. I just wouldn't have touched it, because having that white cane, it gives someone a message straight away. This person's blind, right? What do people think about blind people most of the time, you know? And so I started to use my white cane. My daughter was, I think, 3 weeks old. That was January 2008. I had to get out, you know, with I 10% vision. Then I'm on my own. I've got to get out my daughter. I'm not going to let her be affected by my disability. No way I was going to have that. So we went out, you know, I used the white cane, and we went and we do all sorts of things that we normally do, like baby yoga, tots praise, I don't know, wherever it was, baby massage, everything. You know, we did everything. But the point I'm trying to make here is that, you know, I've only started to use my long cane about 3 or 4 years ago, just after the pandemic. Okay, I was able to own it and use it properly. I got the training from the guide dogs. I'm on a list for a guide dog at the moment, and I think it made a difference for me because I was comfortable with that fact, because as soon as you've got that cane, it tells people you're blind. The thing is, right, even when we're looking at employment, because I work in that sector, when you're looking for training and you're working with people in terms of intersectionality, you know, it's really, really hard when you run your own business, you know, knocking on the doors, basically trying to get a contract. And, you know, it's very lonely running your own business to an extent. And I don't know, in terms of talking about intersectionality, you know, I sometimes think to myself, if I had, you know, blonde hair and blue eyes and I was blind, would I get more business? I'm not sure that I would. I've asked myself that question. I try not to think about race and colour and things like that, because it's not something that matters to me that much, because my husband is actually he's white and he's English. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's I don't want to think about that, because that shouldn't be an issue, right? If it is an issue and those people don't want to work with me, then I don't want to work with those people. It's very, very simple. You know, I want to work with people who are going to accept blind ambition and their staff, okay, for who they are and what they do, not about what they look like and what disabilities they've got.
Accessible mic drop. I love that. And like, you know, you were talking about a female experience there, but as a male, there's a lot I could relate to when you were talking about the fact having a cane. And almost because, you know, I think when you're registered blind or when you're visually impaired, you almost have that non-visible disability. It's non-apparent. People don't know until they hear you use the screen reader, until they see you using an adjustment, until they see you with a cane or a guide dog. And it's almost then that you take that non-apparent and hold this big banner and say, hey, I'm actually blind over here. And it draws that attention. And I feel that so much, because I think a lot of that comes from our own internalized ableism. It's that fear of making ourselves more visible. And, you know, I think with that there, you know, you kind of spoke to it a little bit there about, you know, I think a lot we were talking about there, kind of talk about internalized ableism, but how you were managing it. And I think you talked about, you know, you didn't want your disability to hold you back with your daughter. There's so much I could relate to there. Like, I don't have children, but like, that whole going out in public thing stuck with me. And I think there's something that we need to talk about as well, because I love the fact we're talking about this intersectionality with disability, because I think when you say to a disabled person, you hold some privilege, a lot of pushback happens. A lot of people, it's hard to be oppressed, but to admit that you have some power, privilege in different areas. And I want to talk about that, because what advice would you give, Seema, to people who maybe don't recognize the privilege that they maybe have, or maybe say, well, I'm disabled, I can't have any privilege. You know, what would your response be to somebody who maybe has that mentality or thinks that way?
The question is that do people have a privilege if they're disabled? Is that the question?
Well, it's more so. So obviously, what I personally believe, and I think we've talked about this before in the show, Celia, is that we all hold privileges. You know, if you have sight, that's a privilege. If you have smell, that's a privilege. If you can hear, that's a privilege. So we all have some element of privilege. And I think with disabled people, it's harder for them to admit it to themselves, because obviously we're oppressed so constantly. So the question, I think, is, what advice would you give them, or what would you say to that?
Right. I think, I mean, I wouldn't call it a privilege. I'd call it a superpower. So basically the way I, in quotes, sell it basically to young people, basically who are just starting on this journey, okay? Because go back to your teenage life, right? You want to be like everybody else. You don't want to have that label. You want to be normal. You know, I spent a lot of time masking the fact that I had a disability or vision impairment. I went to a special school up until the age of 16. That was fine. But after 16, I went to a mainstream college, right? There's no way I'd let people know I couldn't see. I could get away with it, right? I used to look for jobs. I wouldn't tell people I couldn't see. I would do temp jobs, which I could just manage to do with the sight that I had, right? And I think for me, you know, that's a lot of time and energy, right, that you're wasting trying to please society, because we get the message that we have to be a certain type of person to fit into society. Or no, that's not where it should be. You know, with people that I work with, you're different. That's brilliant. It's good to be different. Okay. Do you want to be boring like everybody else? No, you don't. Do you want to have that herd mentality? No, you don't. Run your own race. It's okay to be different. Yeah. And as soon as young people or people are starting out on this journey in terms of maybe having a health condition or disability acquired at a later age, just embrace it, go with it, work with it, don't work against it, because life is short. Okay. Don't give up your precious time, worrying about what people are thinking, or, all these sorts of things, because it's taking seconds off your life. Look at the different things that are available to you in terms of different strategies, equipment, whatever it is, training, whatever it is, embrace it and work through it. Basically, take your time, okay, and work through it, and you'll find that the new adaptations or the new sort of normal for you, it'll be much better in terms of actually efficiency and output and productivity, and make you I won't say a better person, but make you more of a what's the word I'm looking for, productive person, I guess, if you're talking about work, or just be able to fit in society and be with the people that you want to be with, and for them to accept you. And it's also, the difficulty is, Jamie and Celia, the problem with people with disabilities and health conditions, we're always having to be at the forefront. Okay, we're having to educate people all the time, right? And that shouldn't have to be the case, right? But it is, right? Don't you ever get fed up with that? I'll give you an example, right? I've been onto the phone to the bank, right? Every time I phone them to telephone banking, they'll say to me, "Oh, do you use the telephone banking app?" Yes, no. Do you know about the telephone banking app? And I say, yes, I effing do. But read your notes. I say to them, read your notes, bring them up there. Look at why I'm not using the telephone, the online banking app, right? You know what I mean? Because I don't use it because I can't access it particularly well, right? And then say, "Oh, yeah, that's okay." And I just think it's about the fact that people don't actually take into account sometimes, or take that extra bit of time to see what's on the notes or whatever, rather than just jumping to conclusions if you're being lazy, and that's why you're not using the online banking app.
Do you know, that is my pet peeve? It is my biggest barrier that I have, because I also, like, I really detest, when you go through and you're coming through and it's taking you so long to get through to that point, and they say to you, "Oh, I see that you have a disability marker on your account. Has anything changed?" And I sit there and I appreciate that people's circumstances should change, but the question shouldn't be, has your disability changed? Yeah, I've went from being registered blind now, and do you know what? I've swapped it out, and I'm now going to go for 7. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, it's one of my pet peeves, because I also have issues. I've moved bank, and Seema, you probably know this yourself, trying to find a bank that is accessible and gets it. And it's that customer service part that really gets underplayed, because that is the biggest saver for a bank. And I moved to a digital bank that has no online banking, there's no phone service. I did all myself, aka my partner does, and my mum does it for me. But what I realized was, like, this is great because I don't have to deal with people no more. I can manage this, it's fine, I've got people to help me do it. But what I realized is that when you get logged out of this bank, they give you a code. Now you have to read this code and record yourself at the same time. However, the colour contrast is completely inaccessible, and when you're registered blind trying to go forward to read something, it then says you need to be visible in camera. Well, I can't be invisible in camera when I'm struggling to read a pretty contrasted colour. So it is so frustrating.
I've disabled all that stuff. Yeah, I've disabled all that stuff off my camera, off the thing. I'm not doing any of those ID things. And you're absolutely right. They send you like a code through on a text message, right? So can you imagine, like, the overload, the sensory overload I'm getting? I've got my speech on my phone. I've got someone on the phone. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think, for sake, what am I gonna? I can't do this.
I'm adamant by the end of this episode you'll say that word, because we're getting close to it and I love it.
Ruth made a really good comment that I want to read out. They said, "I get tired of having to give a short TED talk about my conditions all the time. It's exhausting." And I so concur with that. And I love what you said, Seema, around running your own race and setting your own pathway, is that it's going to be different, and finding acceptance about the fact that everybody is different. They're just different in a very labeled box of disability, and that's where we get shoehorned down into. But everybody is different, and I love what you said about running your own race and setting your own path, because I think that's really important. When my disability started getting worse and worse and worse, and I know that you've been through something similar with your eyesight reducing and reducing, you have that fear that sits under the surface, and you think to yourself, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? What am I going to be able to do? And you're asking yourselves all these questions because society has told us to ask ourselves these questions. and you feel that fear within yourself. And I wanted to ask you the question, kind of coming to the end of Disability Pride Month, especially if you've been through a condition which is degenerative or worsens or reduces over time. How do you mentally cope with that? What advice would you give someone if they know that they're heading in a kind of degenerative direction? Because that is something we've not really talked about before, which is very hard to deal with sometimes. Very
it is hard
difficult.
to deal with that. Yeah, you're right, Celia. And I think even when I was told, when I was diagnosed when I was 9 years old, okay, you're going to be blind, that shattered my world then. But nothing compared to what shattered my world when it actually happened. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. So I think for me, from my point of view, anybody going through a degenerative condition, okay, you know, it is going to be difficult, okay. And I think they need to make sure they've got the right support in place, okay. So making sure that you have a look at the practical things that need to be done within your house, look at technology, what's going to be available for you to be able to make things life easier for you, but also don't forget that emotional support that you're going to need, okay. You might get that emotional support from family members, friends, might be your husband, wife, whoever it is, but also I think in the specialist society or charity that's linked to your specific disability, see what counsellors are out there for you in terms of supporting you, because it is going to be something you need to talk about, because it changes your whole life. It changes your perspective on things, and you will find people will avoid you. People just avoid me, basically. People would, I'd be at the school gates, basically mums would come by, they wouldn't say hello to me, but they'd be thinking, oh God, she's not, I know I'm here. But then they were stupid, because someone else would come along and say, oh, hi, Seema, and then say hi to them. And I'm thinking, oh, I didn't know you were standing there. Do you know what I mean? So, you face discrimination at all points of life, and I say this to my daughter and the people that I work with, it's not just something that happens at school. It happens at work, it happens in when you're a mum, it happens everywhere. And that is something that we have to learn to deal with. People are not always going to like you. I explain that to young people. You're not going to be accepted by everyone, but you're going to have to just suck it up and be pleasant and be civil, and just accept that you may not be everyone's cup of tea.
100%. And do you know what you said earlier? I'm like Marmite. And when you said that, I was just like, I said that to everybody, because
I say it to everyone too.
You either love me or you hate me.
It's a disabled thing.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's like,
You're either going to love us or hate us. Yeah.
And it's because I think some people, because there's such a fear of disability, because people do have a fear of disability, people fear what they don't know. And because they don't understand, we're not educated about disability, we're not educated about ableism, people tiptoe around it, or they kind of like make these assumptions like, oh, I shouldn't talk to this person. Oh, they didn't see me anyway, I'm going to run on past it. Like, it's really like ingrained ableism into the behaviors, but people just aren't aware of it. They're blissfully unaware. And I think when you have a confident disabled person, somebody who has got to a stage where it's like, I'm not putting up with this, which we know took a long time, because you don't just suddenly be disabled and be like, I'm able to articulate all my needs. Because like you say, Matt, it was my late 20s when I actually was able to articulate what I needed. And it takes so much almost trial and error and practice and internalized able to overcome. And I think that we get that stage and we do become like Marmite, because people either really don't want to know because they're so uncomfortable to the point it's like push, or they were like, do you know what, that's incredible, you're willing to say that, because I didn't know. And I think we need to kind of get to a better place where we don't push back on disabled people for having, I'm just going to say, for having the balls or for having the lady lumps to stand up and say, you know what, I am not taking this no more, because it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
It's tiring. Yeah. And people don't recognise that. And I don't want to keep on repeating myself again and again. Do you know what I mean? I know what I need. I just want it delivered to me like everybody else. I want to get my job done. And I say to people, I haven't got time to be disabled. I don't have time to do that. I really don't. I'm running businesses. I'm a mother. My daughter's 16, just did his GCSEs. It's A-levels for her next. I do all sorts of things, and I don't have time for this bullshit. It is a lot of it is bullshit, basically. And I think we just get past all that, and we to be able to do what we want to do and just live our lives, in quotes, normally, yeah. And I think for me, it's about when you have somebody who has been diagnosed with a condition, for example, if someone was say diagnosed with high functioning autism, basically, right? So I'm working with that person. I'm saying, well, look. You don't live in an autistic world, okay? We don't live in a blind world, okay? So we're going to have to navigate that world outside there. So you need to put the strategies in place, what's going to work for you, right? Not everyone's going to understand you. They're not, okay? People are going to be ignorant, and people will offend you. knowingly or unknowingly, right? But it's about yourself as an individual being equipped to be able to deal with that, and then, you know, putting strategies in place and getting the support, and also looking at, you know, how you might advise people or just educate them in a nice way and not get too pissed off when they've annoyed you, you know. And like
I
you
love
said,
that,
it's
because
yeah, sorry,
go on, you finish. I
no.
interrupted you, go on.
No.
I was going to say, I love that, because, you know, when I was younger, I wish someone had done that for me, because I then got to adulthood and all that support network that's, you know, are the support works what they need to be for children? Absolutely not. In no way am I saying that we have enough support for disabled children in the education system. But there's even less when you become an adult, and you really, really have to advocate for yourself. And I was sort of sitting there thinking, I know I need to advocate for myself because people are telling me I do. I don't know where to go for that. I don't know who to ask for that. My doctors don't really know where to put me. My GP doesn't really know where to put me, because I live in a country village and no one else has anything similar to me. And because I didn't have access to how do I set myself up, and Leah mentioned it in the comments, they said the fear is disabling in itself, and overcoming it is so hard. Still wrestling with it. I'm still wrestling with it. I think we all still wrestle with it, where we have those moments we think to ourselves, oh my goodness. And we've spoken about this across our July Pride episodes, of that internalized ableism never goes away. It never does. But it's how do we manage that, and how do we build the tools to be able to cope with it. And I think, you know, what you're saying is so brilliant. What you're doing is so brilliant, is giving people those tools. Early intervention is so important, and it's something that as a society we must do better at.
Can I just add, sorry, Jamie, very quick, can I just add, I think language is really, really important when you're working with working with the disabled people. Now, it's like when people say, oh, you know, they'll say, oh, first of all, they'll be looking at the person who's with me, like, can she enter a PIN number? I get that all the time. Well, yes, she can. So yes, I said yes, I can. So I do it, right? Or does she want to do this? We have all this stuff. You know, does he take sugar type syndrome? But in addition to that, I think it's really, really important to recognise the fact that, you know, when you're supporting someone or working with them, you don't say, you know, I'll take you there or whatever. You know, we're not a piece of luggage. Do you know what I'm saying to you? And I really find that offensive when people say, oh, you know, I'm going to take you. Well, no, you're not bloody taking me anywhere. You're just accompanying me. Yeah.
100%. It's the same as, I'm sure you've got it when somebody's maybe be like, oh, I've seen them, then they guided. I'm going to go over and start guiding you, and they take you, and it's almost like, what are you doing? Like, where are you taking me to? Like, I don't need guided. Like, it's, and it's, do you know what? It's ableism wrapped up with good intent, because that's what that is. It's like people have this intention that I need to help you. Because we've been taught, people are taught to pity disability. You know, if you think of when you were a child and your parents, you know, the kids like, oh, that poor child, God love them. Oh, it must be so hard for them. Or when somebody sees a disabled person, so it's like, oh, just so inspirational, they got a job. Oh my God, this is amazing. Like, it's this assumptions that people have, and then it kind of manifests in the way that they treat us. And it's not that nobody's going, I'm going to go out today and I'm going to piss off as many disabled people as possible. it's good intentions that have been just deep rooted in ableism. And like, I did a post about this earlier and have been kind of talking about it all week, because I was writing something and kind of escalated. But long story short, I was writing this and I was going, it's so true though. It's that society, people have the best intentions in society to try to help. Well, usually they do, but it's a lot of the times when you kind of say, actually, that's wrong. It's how they respond. And to me, that shows what real allyship is. Because somebody who is trying to do better, who is looking to kind of help that person, you're looking to be an ally. And if us telling you, actually, this is how you support me, is going to offend you, or you're going to get annoyed at us for actually saying, actually, don't do that, then that's then what you set out to do isn't actually authentic, because you didn't actually listen to what was needed. So I think it's so important that we recognize this intent, but a lot of times our intentions are just muddled up with ableism. And then I asked myself, did you need to ask that person if they need support? Because let's be real, yes, for some of us we won't have the confidence, but for many of us, if we need something, we know to ask. So don't assume that we need something. Wait for us to tell you.
Yeah.
Or make things accessible.
But it's true. I think, Celia, I think you're right. You know, you said about, advocating for yourself. Okay, it's something that you don't always know how to do it, and especially if you're a young teenager and growing up, you know. And I think your early intervention is really, really key. And it's about giving that young person or the person, you know, the reins, and say, look, you know, you take the reins now, and try and do it slowly, and build them up, basically. Because I think that, you know, you're right. You know, I used to be really quiet. I'd never advocate for myself. I didn't know where to start. I came from a family where of 5 girls. Basically, I'm number 4, right? And we were in an era where children were seen and not heard. Do you know what I mean? So, advocating for myself is something that I didn't know how to do it at all. And then like I said, we're not all born bolshy and troublemakers and whatever. Unfortunately, we're just trying to campaign and advocate for ourselves and try and make things easier for people that are coming up behind us. That's what we're trying to do as disabled people.
And that's
I want to interject a funny story here about example of where that we need to be listening to disabled people more and how difficult self-advocacy can be. After I'd had a stint in intensive care, they were like, this definitely needs some therapy. Like this is going to have damaged her mentally a little bit. So I said, right, it's going to have to be quite specific therapy, because obviously we're not trying to cure something here. We're trying to learn the tools to manage and to learn how to navigate the world. I have actually never had, and I'm sure we've all had therapists at some point in our lives, and the conversation around mental health and disability must be talked about more. But I have never had a therapist, and I've had a lot, that have never not had the mentality of trying to cure me by saying, this will go away, things will get. No, that's not what I'm asking for. I've had therapists say to me, okay, let's learn the tools to be mentally strong enough to not think about the pain. I think, fuck off. Like, it's never going away. But this is the prime example of, I tried to self-advocate for myself. I didn't get the right thing. And I didn't then know how to kind of go and seek the right thing. I knew the first steps, but I didn't know the next steps afterwards. And as I've got older, I've definitely learned more of that self-advocacy of sticking to my guns and really putting home on it. But then, like we said throughout this conversation, people then think that we're bossy and we're, all of these negative traits that get associated with so many different protected characteristics. I hate that expression, but I'm using it for the purpose of this conversation. But we get bossy and we get bolshy and we get pushy and we're troublemakers. I'm not a troublemaker. I'm just asking for my human rights. Accessibility is a human right, not a privilege. I'm not making trouble. If anything, I'm getting you out of trouble. And I think there's that real stereotype around disability.
It's true.
If we are outgoing, people don't like that. We should be kept in our boxes. We should be quiet. That's what disability is supposed to be. And seeing people like you and Jamie and so many other creators breaking that mold is so incredible to see. And I hope that people receive it in the right way and not in a, oh, they're just troublemakers way. Yeah.
And you're right. That's exactly. They do think, oh, it's her. She's hard work. It's her, it's Seema again. She's hard work. She's. And I was thinking, well, what the fuck are you talking about me like that? Because I'm trying to do something here. I'm just trying to do what everybody else would be doing. The only reason why you're annoyed at me is because you've been pulled up on something and you don't like it.
Exactly.
That's usually what it is.
Exactly.
And people are bloody lazy. Sometimes more often, they don't want to actually do their job. So when you pull them up and say, actually, do you know what? I need to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, go and search the internet. It's all online. No, I don't want to look at online. I want you to tell me what there is, because that's what you're paid to do.
100%. And I just love that. I love this space because I love that each of us has like this background, this experiences that drove us to the point. It's just like, I've had enough and I'm going to make the change that we need. And I just love that's what it all stems from. But equally, I just love the passion that comes out when we talk about this, because we get told, if you say the wrong thing, if you curse, if you do this, if you do X, Y, Z, you're not professional enough. You have to be really professional in this space. And it's like, do we know? Because professionalism to me is very tainted and very white supremacist, very like oppressive, very like you need to be like everybody else and follow the herd. And when I think about people, because I've been told, oh, that person's a wee bit angry,
very
neurotypical. Professional. Yeah, very neurotypical. And I think we have tried professionalism a certain way for decades and decades and decades and decades. It's not included disability. It's marginalized individuals. It's not working. So professional needs an update. And you know what? If seeing people being bold, calling out situations that are shit or things that have happened to them, if that makes you so uncomfortable where you are annoyed, that tells me more about you than it does about that person you're labeling as a troublemaker. Because I get a lot, and it's one of my pet peeves, because I'm like, I'm the most lovely, and I know it's probably sounds really big-headed, but I generally can be the most loveliest person.
You are, Jamie.
I want to be your best friend. It's like, let's go to the bar, let's do this, let's go for a walk. I want to do that. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm still going to be that friend who says, actually, you should have said that. That was actually uncalled for, or that what you said was quite ableist, or don't speak to me that way. And in fact, well, that's what I find to be the most meaningful relationships, because we talked about relationships earlier. And what I find is the support for me is the people who get it. Like my best friend, I can have a moment in a call where he'll maybe say something. My autism will kick in, and I thought he's been like, being rude to me, or his tone has changed. And I'm like, don't speak to me, I'll call you later. And I'll hang up the phone. And rather than my friend come back and fight with me, they'll give me a while to calm down. They'll come back and be like, I just want to explain, I wasn't doing that, but I appreciate it, mate. I came across this way. And I'm like, you get it. It's the same as my eyesight. My partner gets my sight. To me, it's the people who get the I don't want to say the ugly side, because there's no ugly side, but it's the side that isn't so friendly. It's the side that maybe needs to vent and is able to still support you. To me, that is what support is. That's the people that we need, who see us at our best, who see us at our worst, and is going to sit and be angry with us. But make sure we don't turn into the Hulk, of course.
You're absolutely right, Jamie. And I think I'll just do a bit of self-disclosure here. Basically, December last year, I had an ADHD test, okay, and I came out with I've got traits of ADHD, right? So I thought I was the way I was because I can't see, right? Because I thought, okay, I'm thinking fast, I'm trying to compensate for my eyesight, blah blah blah. But it wasn't to do that. It's the fact that I have ADHD, and that's why I think differently. I think fast. I'm moving all the time. I want to do things, and I never sit down. But you're right. And then even with that, people say, well, you're too fast, you don't fit in. Do you know what I mean? And people want you to try and slow down to fit in around them.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's I just can't be surrounded by people who are idiots sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Right? Because they're not able to keep up with me. And that's, somehow that's my problem all of a sudden, right? Just because my brain thinks differently. Do you see what I'm saying to you? So it's very difficult. You can't win.
It's like you're expected to change for somebody, but rather than actually come together and say, actually, this is the best way it works for me, this is the best way it works for me, meet in the middle, there has to be that compromise. And I think a lot of the times we lose that compromise, particularly within the disability space, and even amongst ourselves with disabilities. Because I've had people say, I've had Celia, you've been involved in this, I've had people argue with me, and I find I don't put up with it no more, and they've said, I disagree with you, and I don't agree with your post, and I'm going to fight with you. And I'm like, I'm not asking you to agree with what I say, because it's my lived experience. If I wanted everyone to have the same, I would be like, okay, let's come by and let's do this together. But we don't have the same experiences. And so people have came to Celia and be like, Jamie's blocked me and fought me over this. And then they fought with Celia for even telling me that it's ridiculous. And I think in this space, we need to get comfortable with understanding that we aren't just the sole voice of the disabled community. We are one person, and we can't expect every other disabled person to meet us at our side, because we need to meet them in the middle. There needs to be a bit of back and forth between everybody. And I'm conscious we're down to the last 7 minutes, and Seema, I want to ask you a question before we kind of round off, because it is Disability Pride Month. There's a lot of back and forth about Disability Pride Month. Some people love it, some people think it's great, some people think it's tokenistic. We want to ask you your honest opinion. What is your view of Disability Pride Month?
I think Disability Pride Month, I think in today's day and age, basically, it's a time where, we're recognising people's differences, and as we're looking at all the, the protected characteristics, etc., I think it's got its place there. But I think Disability Pride, or Pride full stop, it should be celebrated throughout the year. It should be, it's something that should happen all the time. It should be an everyday occurrence for people. It shouldn't just happen 1 month. Yeah, but I think maybe by educating people 1 month, that's fine. But I think it's something that society needs to take on board, that we are all different. Okay, we all have got different experiences. We've all got different things that we live with. Okay, and it's about embracing people's differences and being able to work with them and accommodate them, as much as you can.
That was just brilliantly said. And we are down to the last 5 minutes of the show. And do you know what? I always feel really annoyed at the show, because we get to this time, I'm like, where does the time go? Like, where does it go? Because
it's gone so quick.
It always
does.
Always does. But before we kind of start to close off, Seema, we want to make sure everyone can follow you or connect with you or stay up to date with what you're doing. Do you want to share some information of the best ways people can follow you and to stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so basically I'm on LinkedIn, Blind Ambition Seema Flower. If you want to get in touch with me via email, you can send an email to contact@blindambition.co.uk. The website is www.blindambition.co.uk as well. I'm really bad. I don't know all my handles in terms of Twitter, Instagram, all those sorts of things. But maybe I can send them to you guys or whatever.
100%, and we can share them, because what we'll be doing moving forward is sharing your links on the profile with your bio, with the recording of this video that we've done today, and as I said, we'll go cross podcasts and things like that. But Seema, it has been absolutely incredible having you on. We did a podcast years ago. It was a live that we had done years ago, and it all had been in my mind. And when Celia says, "I've got this guest covered, I know who this guest is going to be," and she said, "You're your idol," I'm leaving this call understanding why, because you are just iconic, and love this conversation. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I just want to spend a couple of minutes reading out some of the comments as well. Lots of people dialing in from video and abroad, which is really exciting. Ruth they've put some really interesting comments about going out with young children, and the fact that young children often tend to be more receptive to disability because it's a positive inquisitiveness in asking questions, and it's much more positive. So about educating people as early as possible around disability. Comments from Moji are saying about masking being exhausting. People call you difficult if you're a woman that advocates, but you have to get comfortable with yourself to be able to advocate. There's also more comments from Ruth about not receiving proper care. You have to have a mindset. People try and instigate it onto you without them having lived experience themselves, so it ends up being complete bollocks, basically. Sorry to use that language. About rocking the boat. And I want to read this out as well, that says, "You challenge the norms, either social power or you're brave and held up as a disabled inspiration for challenging the norms." And I think that's really important. We talk about it a lot, about disability inspiration porn, and about the fact that if you're a disabled person and you do anything, we're inspirational, not because we've done something, but because we're disabled and we've done something.
I think
well done, we walked in the shop.
Literally. And then lots of love for you as well, saying how amazing you are. And Jennifer said, "Great hearing from you, Seema, very inspiring." So there.
Oh, thank you so much. But just very quickly, Celia, just to say, when people say, "Oh, you're so brave," I really hate that. I'm not brave.
Oh,
I'm just trying to live my life. It's so condescending,
I want to add something onto that. People say, "Oh God, people say it all the time." They're like, "Oh God, you're so brave, so inspiring. How do you do it? How do you get through the day?" And my response now, when I was younger, my response was, it is difficult. But my response now is dead ass in the face. Well, if I didn't, I'd be fucking dead. So what do you want me to do about it? There we go.
Oh, boom.
I have no choice. I have no choice, and my other option is I don't care for myself, and it's stupid.
But my mum always said,
yeah,
my mum always said sarcasm. If you don't know what to say, sarcasm was always the best response. And I think as a disabled person, I have agreed with that. Now, I know we're down to the last 2 minutes, and I'm sorry to keep us on the schedule, because I'm conscious I want to make sure that we promote our next episode. And we have done 5 episodes across the month of Disability Pride Month.
Jamie, I'm exhausted.
Exhausted. We're nearly there. There is hope, and we're nearly at the finish line. Although I wish we could do it all again, because it has been amazing.
I know, it's been amazing.
But next week we are going to round up our last live with the incredible Jodie Greer, and we are going to talk about everything to do with allyship. What is allyship? How do you go beyond tokenistic words of allyship? And how somebody became such an ally that they're now such a recognised name in the community. So we will be bringing Jodie on. Do look out for the invite. That will go out soon. And remember that you can catch up with the Unlearning Ableism podcast here on this channel. So please watch back on this channel. If you are listening back to Spotify or any other major platforms, please do come check out the comments or come join us for live and share your questions. But Seema, just to say again, honestly, thank you so much for joining us. This has been the highlight of my day. But wait.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you guys. It was a privilege to be on, and thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to working with you guys in the future. Thank you. Thanks, nice to meet some like-minded people.
Yeah.
Celia, you're almost through as much as I do.
No, don't. I'm awful. This is so toned down. We're awful. Jamie and I are horrific. We can't get.
I'm not Irish, so I have an excuse. Like it's like just a stereotype of an Irish person. The curse loads in the part, and I live up to it. But yes, we will love and leave you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
The Unlearning Ableism podcast is sponsored by Even Break, an award-winning global social enterprise run entirely by disabled people for disabled people. So if you're looking for a job with an inclusive employer, or you're an organisation looking for disabled talent, find job listings and set up alerts on the Even Break job board today. Visit evenbreak.co.uk or scan the QR code.
The Unlearning Ableism podcast, sponsored by Even Break.